What's you gonna do? When the Astrotheology destroys you.
Anything less would be civilized.
Hey there, fellow wisdom seekers. How are you today? Thank you for joining the Brave New World Order podcast, straight out the catacombs of podcasting. I am your host, Brandon St. One. And today we have a very special episode because I had my first guest on for a very interesting and amazing presentation that he brought. His name is Micah Dank, and you have to listen to this and let me know what y'all think, because I'm hoping to have a part 2 with him so he can keep on going and dropping that knowledge here on the Brave New World Order. I really enjoyed having him on the show. It was my very first guest, so I will get better at interviews the more I do them, and I'm really hoping to have more people on here. I'm hoping to have Micah on again, and it was pretty awesome and just completely mind-blowing information that he brought. And I have to admit that right before he jumped on the call, I had some technical difficulties, and I was a little frazzled at the beginning and everything, but it's all good. It was my first time having anybody on the show, having any type of conversation like this about such deep wisdom that he has. And he's a very interesting guy. He's an author. He's written 7 books so far as part of a 9-book series in total that's called Into the Rabbit Hole. So definitely check him out. Check out his books. Check out his YouTube channel. And hit him up on Twitter. Follow him. And everywhere you can find him, I'm going to post all the links in the show notes. So I hope you follow him and check out everything that he's has to say, all the information that he's putting out there on his YouTube, on his Twitter, his Facebook, all that good stuff. And you can also follow me and follow the Brave New World Order podcast. Hit subscribe. And if you like this episode, please leave a review, like it, hit the like button, all that good stuff, because this is what the show's all about. I would love to have some more people on here, have some more interviews, and just bring people on that have such a depth of knowledge and wisdom, and just bring a different spin and perspective to ancient texts like the Bible and other stuff. So that's what I'm really hoping for with the Brave New World Order podcast. I hope you're enjoying it, and you can hit me up via email. Let me know what you think about this podcast episode. I really am looking for your feedback on this one, so I can hopefully have Micah on for a part 2, and I hope that you would want him on for a part 2, because I definitely do. So let me know what you think about Micah and his information. Hit me up, the Brave New World Order podcast @gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter @Brave NWO podcast. And if you really like the Brave New World Order, definitely share this, spread the word, share it with friends, random people, anybody. This type of information that Mike is dropping is awesome, and I think it should be out there. And I want to do my part to help spread this type of knowledge. So definitely share this if you enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up, a like, all that good stuff. Leave a review if you're able to on whatever platform that you are listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining the Brave New World Order podcast. Here is a great presentation from Micah Dank on Intro to Astrotheology. Check it out. Welcome to the Brave New World Order podcast, Wisdom Seekers. I'm your host, Brandon St. One, and today we have my very first guest on the show. His name is Micah Dank, and he is an author of several books. What is it, about 9 of them now? 7 books?
So 7 are out, but there's going to be 9 total.
9 total, right? Okay, yeah, so 7 books, and that's called Into the Rabbit Hole, right? The series of books, and they're available on Amazon and everything like that. And he's also teacher of Astrotheology and teacher of Syncretism for the Syncretism Society. So welcome to the show. I'm very grateful to have you here as my first guest. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. So what I've got is I got a presentation that I'm going to show you. Now I'm only going to be able to get through the first part of it, the first half, because it is quite long. Okay. So we can just, let me share screen. And it helps if you people watch this instead of just listen to this, because you'll be able to follow along. So I
Definitely.
start by saying, employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall come easily what others have labored hard for. That was Socrates. I've been studying the Bible for 30 years. I've been studying occult and esotericism for 20, and I've been studying astrotheology for 10, and I've been teaching it for about 2.5 now. Okay? So when you're talking about the Bible, I'm going to make the case for this, but you have to understand the Bible is known as the 7 holy sciences. That's what's in it. Okay? Metaphysics, astrological, anatomical, alchemical, spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. The Bible is not literal. The Bible is not historical. The Bible is not reality. And the Bible is not original. Okay? This is the zodiac wheel. Okay? With Cancer at the top and Capricorn at the bottom, this is how the zodiac wheel should look. Okay? Now, the astrotheology or astrology goes back as far as we could find, about 17,000 years to 40,000 years. That's the Lascaux Caves. What the Lascaux Caves were these caves in Lascaux, France. That's why they're called the Lascaux Caves. Were basically some teenagers went into the back of the cave. Okay? They discovered this cave and they kind of made their way through it. Here you see an article that says the Lascaux cave painting of 17,000 years ago. World's oldest cave paintings showed humans understood complex astronomy 40,000 years ago. Okay. When they went into the cave, they went to the back of the cave. And when they went to the back of the cave, they saw this as an example. You see the bulls on the top, you see the many faces of the lion on the right, and you see the horse at the bottom. And they quickly realized that the bulls were Taurus, the lion was Leo, and the horse was Sagittarius. It's just missing the guy with the bow and the arrow. So what did they do? They called some people, and they got some scientists in, and they carbon dated it. Now, for young Christians, young Earth Christians, who think that carbon dating is incorrect, they're actually half right. Christians are half right about that. Carbon 14 dating is actually accurate up to 50,000 years. See, it works off half-life. Okay, it works off the half-life that they're able to tell. But anything beyond 50,000 years, it's not really accurate. Then you get into uranium datings, then you get into other types of carbon datings. But what they did was they noticed these were all the constellations. You have Taurus, the bull, you have Lion, the Leo, and you have the horse Sagittarius. What they did was they brought in an astronomer and an astrologer with a computer, because we have the technology to do this. And what they did was they rewound the clock back 17,000 years, which is what the carbon dating showed, that it was 17,000 years old. They rewound the sky back 17,000 years. They printed out what they saw, and they superimposed it on the wall, and all the constellations lined up. So they knew about the zodiac and astrology for 17,000 years. Well, why is that important? Well, if you go into the Bible, for example, there's questions that you can ask about the Bible that are confusing. How Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why is his birthday on December 25th, just common stuff in the Bible. All of it could be explained with astrotheology. Okay, Genesis 1:14 says, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years." And that's exactly what it is. Now, each zodiac sign is called a house, and they have other names for it: an era, an eon, a sign, a home, a mansion. There are many words for it. What I have to do now is I have to teach you the 12 signs. And by teaching you the 12 signs, what I'm going to do is prepare you for when we start doing the decodings. So there's keywords in each sign that you'll find that make sense when you understand the story. So Aquarius, that I start with, and technically Aries starts the year, the agricultural year, but I start with Aquarius because that's kind of the beginning of our new year. The first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher. It goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy. Okay, Zeus saw a 14-year-old boy, blonde boy on earth, and he wanted him in heaven, but the father wouldn't let him go. Zeus bargains with the father, takes the boy up to heaven. The boy, as seen in this picture, is serving the gods something called ambrosia out of the water pitcher. Okay, that's the nectar of the gods. So what happens? Well, one day he gets fed up with doing it, day in and day out. He goes to the side of heaven and pours it out, just like in this picture. Zeus gets mad, real mad, and he is not known as someone who controls his temper. But what he ends up doing is, instead of punishing this guy, he realizes he's a 14-year-old boy and he's been just basically a slave. What he does is, instead of punishing him, he immortalizes him as the constellation Aquarius. So it's a Greek story. So there's words. Okay. Son of man or man, because this is a sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Fountain, many fountains are built like this. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, and sea. For example, because there's all water, there's water in this sign. Now, Pisces is actually a water sign, whereas Aquarius is an air sign. Okay, but because there's water in this picture, when you're talking about decoding the Bible with it, you can use water for it because there's water in it, whereas Pisces is actually a water sign. So all the same water examples go with Pisces. Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way up to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and it becomes the resurrection of God's son. Okay, in the Jewish Passover, the third Passover, is when the angel of death passes over all the houses in Egypt, and anyone that doesn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries the ram, blood on the doorpost, their firstborn sons get killed. Okay, so ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn. Anytime you hear those words, they're talking about Aries. Taurus is the bull. When you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seed so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. It's another Greek story. Whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So the sun rises a degree on its axis starting December 25th. The 26th, the next day, it rises an additional degree. Every additional day, it rises an additional degree. The days get longer, the nights get shorter. When it hits June 21st, that's the summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year. It doesn't rise anymore. It doesn't rise any higher, okay? But instead of starting to lower a degree a day, what it does is it sits still for 3 days, okay? So it walks sideways like the crab, okay? Because it basically shuffles to the side. And then on June 25th, it drops a degree. And then it continues to drop a degree every single day until it hits December 21st, okay? Then it walks sideways for 3 days, and then it comes back to life December 25th. That's why all the gods are born on December 25th. And the sun does this year in and year out. That's what it does. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, because the crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab, whenever you hear crab or beetle, you're talking about Cancer. Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So remember before when you were saying that you plant in Taurus, well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, grainy things, these are all things that you harvest. That all takes place in Virgo. Feel free to Google it. Okay, this is harvest season. Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. Libra is also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you press the wine here. It is also olive season. So when you crush the olives, you do that in Libra to make the oil. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, all lawly things, lawyer, that's Libra. Libra is also wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, juice, that's Libra. Okay? Olive oil or olive oil, that's also Libra too. A lot going on in Libra. Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is known as the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death, and it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. Because there's 12 disciples, and each one of the disciples represents one of the zodiac signs. So the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. And then finally in Sagittarius, this is where the man with the bow and the arrow shoots the sun, effectively killing it. Why? Because the last day of Sagittarius is December 21st. That's the day of death. See what would happen, Brandon, on the day of death, December 21st, is the sun doesn't even cross the horizon. So the ancients would look out into the sky and it would be cold, and they would look out and they would see the sun didn't cross the horizon. So they would say the sun was dead because it didn't rise. Okay. And then what happens? It walks sideways for 3 days. So suddenly God's son was dead for 3 days. That's where that comes from. We're on December 25th. It comes back to life. That's why all the gods are born on December 25th. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. Finally, you have Capricorn, who's the goat because he likes to climb the mountain. The mountain goats climb the mountain on a 1-inch ledge. And if you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, Capricorn's at the very bottom. It starts the arduous climb, going to the left a degree a day, all the way to its height at the top in Cancer. Okay, so those are the 12 signs. Do you have any questions about that? Because those keywords are going to be pertinent, and I'm going to keep reading.
That's.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions off the top of my head about any of it. It's just so much taken. I just love how, this stuff is like connected, like everything's connected, like the Bible and the stars. I love this kind of stuff. It's awesome. So you keep going, man, because I don't have any questions like about any specific one. It's just I'm trying to follow along and just keep note of like what you're saying. Keep note of.
Okay, good. All right. So now there's names for Jesus that he's given in church. His nicknames that he's given in church. It's all astrology. Now, Jesus is the Piscean age solar deity, just like Horus was the solar deity of the age of Taurus. Okay, just like Horus was, just like Osiris was.
And that's why the fish symbol always for
we'll get to
Jesus
that.
a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay, but there's nicknames that he's given in church. So remember, Jesus is the Son, not the Son, S-O-N, but the S-U-N. Okay, he is anthropomorphized as a human being, but it's a story of the son's hero's journey. So let's go through some of the nicknames for Jesus, which anybody who goes to church can confirm this. Okay, Capricorn is the goat. When the sun is in Capricorn, he's called the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in Aquarius, the sign of the man, he's the son of man. In Pisces, he's the fisherman of men. That's why he feeds the masses with 2 fish also. In Aries, he's the Lamb of God or the Good Shepherd. Cancer, the scarab, the beetle. St. Augustine called Jesus the good beetle. In Leo, the sun is known as the Lion of Judah. The lion, Leo, lion. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin and he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scales of justice. He's known as the just one. And he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius, December 21st. It's also why he's worshipped on the Sunday. Now look at the stereotypical picture that everybody has come to understand Jesus to be, okay? I'm going to point out a bunch of things, okay? First of all, his fingers are up like this, okay? His white face with the beard, that stereotypical face, the sun behind his head, the heart outside the body with the crown of thorns, the red and the white that he's wearing. It's always the red and the white, okay? Well, let's start with the red and the white. Remember how I told you the Bible is also alchemy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the red and the white in alchemy is known as the mixture of the red king and the white queen, okay? In fact, let me break it down even further. You're talking about the elements, right? Sulfur is white and mercury is red. It's when you combine the two. Okay, it's called the alchemical marriage. That's alchemy. The sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. The 2 fingers up are an ancient Kemetic peace sign. This is an ancient Egyptian peace sign. See this right here that I'm doing right now? Okay, the John Lennon peace sign. This is a V for victory. Okay, it's a war sign. This is a Churchill sign. This is from the British. Okay, the fingers are separate. Okay, when you see this, when you see the fingers like this, when you see Baphomet doing this, or you see Jesus doing this, or you see Buddha doing this, what they're telling you is they're peaceful. And I get into Baphomet later and I explain what it really is, but that's what the 2 fingers are on. Now, the white Jesus picture, his face, the stereotypical face, is actually a guy named Caesar Borgia, who was the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI.
I've heard that before. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah. So basically, Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, bought his way to the papacy in the 1500s. Okay? He bought his way to the papacy. He's one of the Illuminati 13 families, the Borgia family. Okay? What happened 80 years before he became Pope was the printing press came out. So they were able to mass produce the face of his son. Okay? Now, the crown of thorns wrapped around the heart on the outside, and the heart is always on the outside, represents the rays of the sun. The heart outside the body represents the toroidal field or the torus field. Okay? Now look at this. 4 pictures from the internet. Jesus, the sun behind his head, the sun behind his head, the sun behind his head, the sun. It's always about the sun. Same stereotypical face, heart outside the body, the 2 fingers up like this. In the second picture, you'll see a Knights Templar cross in the sun. They do that sometimes. Okay. That goes back to roughly like the 1300s. Okay. Now you'll see that. Now the sun's always behind his head because he represents the sun. These are pictures of baby Jesus. Okay. The sun is always behind his head. Always. You'll always see the North Star, Polaris there. Okay. So that's baby Jesus, adult Jesus. It's always revolving around the sun because they're telling you. Now the toroidal field that I was talking about for the heart is this. It's an electromagnetic field of the heart. Okay. You're at the center and it circumnavigates around you 6 feet. That is your range. That is your heart's toroidal field range. Some people call it an aura. There's different words for it. Okay. This goes around you 6 feet. When somebody comes up behind you, Brandon, and you know they're there, you're not a psychic or anything. They broke your toroidal field. It's a measurable thing. Okay. And incidentally, it goes around you 6 feet. That's why the elites tried to keep you 6 feet apart during this pandemic. Okay, because you couldn't interact with it. Yeah, interesting. Such an arbitrary number, no reason. This is the reason why. When you're interacting with someone, it looks like this. It forms a vesica Pisces, okay? With the center of the core as the most animate. Now, this is a picture of Jesus on the left. This is Caesar Borgia on the right. You can see where he gets his facial features from. You know, this is even a bad picture of Caesar Borgia. I could probably get a much better picture of Caesar Borgia. But this is a drawing of him, and this is an early drawing of Jesus. Now, before the Shroud of Turin was discovered in 525 AD, almost all paintings and drawings of Jesus showed a young, beardless man. Okay? Then suddenly they see the Shroud of Turin. Suddenly he has a beard. Boom, Caesar Borgia fits the thing. Caesar Borgia was an asshole. Okay? He killed his brother. He slept with his sister. This is who the face of Jesus is. Okay, I know this sounds like blasphemy and witchcraft, but it's really not. This is true.
Yeah, I've gone down this rabbit hole before, and I forgot a lot of it and stuff, but I know it was that Caesar Borgia guy that was the image of Jesus and stuff, but it's crazy.
Now let's start decoding with the keywords that I gave you. Okay, have you heard of the phrase "Pride comes before the fall"?
Yes, I've heard that.
You explain it to your listeners.
Pride. The sin, right? So let me try to explain it the best I can. Prideful, you get too prideful, then the fall happens. That's right. I mean, men who get too much pride, they get too cocky and arrogant, and then they get.
And that's a beautiful way of thinking of it. That's a beautiful way of thinking of things. But astrotheologically, what is a group of lions called?
That's the Leo, right?
A pride.
Oh, a pride. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of the constellation. Pride. Yes. Okay. Pride. Okay. And so then we connect it to Leo, I guess.
Yeah. Leo is in July and August. That comes in the fall.
Oh, so that's astrotheology. Okay. Yeah, I see. For the fall.
Okay. Now, in Micah 5:2, which is my namesake, but you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from ancient times. However, in Hebrew, Bethlehem is a combination of 2 words. It's not a location. Bet means house, and lechem means bread, so the house of bread. Well, each zodiac sign is a house. I mentioned that earlier. What's the house of bread? Well, it would be Virgo, the virgin with the wheat stalk. So the Savior will come from a virgin. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy though.
You see how deeply it's encoded?
Yeah. Like, why so encoded though? That's one thing I love this kind of stuff. Like you get into that later. Or
yeah.
Oh, okay. That's one thing that stays in my mind when I see it. I'm like, why so deep for so many layers for everything? It's amazing.
Right. So now we're going to go into Deuteronomy 32. There's going to be 10 signs here. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So let's go through this. He gave them honey from the cliffs. In the sign Cancer, okay, there's a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster. It's an asterism. It's a closely knit group of stars like the Pleiadian Seven Sisters. Okay, so that's where the honey comes from. That's in Cancer. Olive oil, we know that's Libra. Okay, milk from the flock comes from the Milky Way galaxy, and the Milky Way galaxy, okay, goes back as far back as the Egyptian Book of the Dead that I traced it. Okay, it's literally called that.
Wow.
Okay, now the Milky Way galaxy centers in Sagittarius. So your land from Cancer to Sagittarius is your land of milk and honey. It's not a place on Earth. Okay, it's a celestial metaphor. He gave them lambs, that's Aries, and goats, that's Capricorn. They had the best rams, that's Aries from Bashan, and the finest wheat, Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes, that's Libra. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. The bull is Taurus. There's 10 signs in this one passage. So now you can start to see how we're going to start to decode things. Okay? Mount of Olives. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so he could teach them a few more things, pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. Okay, so that's what happened. Now let's look at the zodiac wheel. Let's follow this. Passover. Okay, after the last Passover. Passover takes place in Aries. It's all the way on the left. Right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. Well, olives are Libra, right? So how do you get from Aries to Libra? You go across the zodiac. They're known as cross or opposing signs, okay? While they're in Libra, they're waiting for the betrayal of Judas. Well, the betrayer is Scorpio, which is right next to Libra. So you go across the zodiac, and then you're waiting for the next sign. While he's in Libra, he gives the parable of the true vine, which has to do with grapes, which has to do with wine, which has to do with Libra. So you see how that works? That's how we're going to start decoding things, okay? Using the keywords, okay? And you're just going to follow along. Now, you're going to see a lot of opposing signs and neighboring signs. Now, Aries' neighboring signs are Pisces and Taurus, okay? And its opposing sign is Libra. So not only do these make patterns in the sky, okay? But it's not just talking about like twins in Gemini and a lion in Leo because there's no pattern there. These always talk about opposing or connecting signs. It's done on purpose, okay? Genesis 1:7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters, which were under the firmament, from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Now, the firmament are the dividing lines between zodiac signs. If I go back to the first picture here, you can see the dividing lines between signs. Those are known as the firmament. The firmament is not a dome over a flat earth.
Okay.
What a firmament.
I've heard that.
Okay, it's a mistranslation. That's not what the firmament is. The firmament, okay, these lines don't exist in the zodiac, in the sky. But what they represent is the 3-day period where one sign hands over an energy to another. Okay? We talk about them as cusps. We talk about them as handover dates in astrology. It's a 3-day period where the energies basically blend. Okay? And if you're a cusp, when people say they're a cusp, they have energies from the previous sign, okay? So let's look back at this knowing that, okay? God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament. Well, look here. Remember, the waters are Pisces from the firmament, which with the waters which were above the firmament. That's Aquarius, the water too. That's what Genesis 1:7 is talking about. He's talking about creating Aquarius and Pisces. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. The first living creature was like a lion. That's Leo the lion. The second was like an ox. That's Taurus. The third had a face like a man. Aquarius the man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. This gets a little deeper into astrology, but in astrology, the scorpion is the belly crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on earth. It crawls on its belly. What was the first thing that God did to the snake after the deception in the Garden of Eden? He took his legs away. He made him crawl. In Mexico, during Santo de la Muerte, okay, people dress up in suits. Men dress up in suits, get on their bellies, and crawl to church. It's a punishment. Okay, it's a humbling experience. Now, the Scorpio is the lowest form of life on earth, but its evolved form, also known as the ascendant in astrology, is the eagle, which is the highest flying form of life on earth. Okay, so the eagle becomes Scorpio. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. These are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So in astrology, you have 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. They're fixed in their season, okay? The first sign in a season, okay, is the cardinal sign. The second is the fixed. The third sign that takes you out of the sign is the mutable sign. Okay. So what does 4 fixed mean? It means it's fixed in their season. Look at Leo. It's in the middle of summer. Taurus is in the middle of spring. Aquarius is in the middle of fall, winter. And Eagle or Scorpio is in the middle of fall. Now you'll also notice this too. Leo and Aquarius, remember the patterns? They're opposing signs. Taurus and Scorpio, or the Eagle, are opposing signs. So let's read this one more time. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. When you plot that out on the zodiac, it forms this. Okay, it makes an X or a cross directly through it with opposing signs. So that's what that pattern is. There's not going to be a 4-headed animal in the sky. They're literally just talking about the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. In Ezekiel 10:14, each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One face was that of a cherub. The second was the face of a human being. The third was the face of a lion. The fourth was the face of an eagle. It's the same thing. It's the 4 fixed signs. Okay. And you see that, and I'll show you that later when you see Ezekiel, the picture of Ezekiel looking at God, okay, with the tetramorph, which is the same exact 4-headed animal, and the zodiac wheel next to it. It's the picture of Ezekiel like this. Everybody's seen it.
And that's the passage that people like, the ancient aliens people used to, like the Ezekiel passage, right? That he was talking about something coming from. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really wheel. This though, right?
Ezekiel's wheel. The wheel is the zodiac is called the wheel.
Yeah.
Ezekiel's wheel. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Now, I don't usually get into numerology when they're like 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns, but in this particular case, the 7 heads are the 7 chakras. The 10 horns are the 10 points on the Kabbalah tree of life. And the 7 crowns, okay, are the 7 planets they knew about at the time. Okay. Now, people actually think there's going to be a dragon in the sky about to eat a pregnant woman during the end of days. Okay. However, the woman clothed with the sun is the sun clothed in Virgo. It's just a metaphor for the sun being in Virgo. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So this one is easy to explain. There's 12 signs of the zodiac. There's a 24-hour-a-day clock. So the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. Make sense? If you follow, if you follow the clock, when the sun is in Virgo, that's between 4 and 6 p.m. That's when the sun is still out. If the sun is still out, the moon will be at her feet. Now, not literally, the moon is still up, but it's a metaphor, because if the sun is up, the moon is at her feet. Because when the moon is up, is the sun not down? Right? Now, another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation on the left is the constellation Draco the dragon. Look at its tail. It's absolutely enormous. It goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. These are just celestial metaphors. They're all just celestial metaphors. Okay? Revelation 7:4. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. So a lot of people, including the Jehovah's Witnesses, say that 144,000 are predestined people who are going to heaven. Okay? They get to see God. Okay? Only 144,000. And the Jehovah's Witnesses teach this as literal. Okay? But you have to understand the Bible was also influenced by the East too. I'm sure you've heard of the chakras, right?
Mm-hmm. I have.
There are 7 chakras. The root has 4 petals. The sacral has 6.
And that's encoded in this as well.
What?
That's encoded in this as well. The chakras. Right. That's all.
Solar plexus has 10. The heart has 12. The throat has 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras. 48 times 2 equals 96. The crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 80 plus 48 equals 144. Times that by 1,000 by your crown chakra, you get your 144,000. When you've activated all your chakras, that is when you get to go see God. That is the message here.
Wow.
Okay. It's not a set of people. It is not a set amount of people that are going to heaven. Okay.
That's amazing.
Yep. Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. The sheep is Aries, and the wolf is the constellation lupus, who borders the Libra line. Look at the pattern it makes in the zodiac. They're opposing signs. Okay, this is just a metaphor. This is another famous line. Okay, but it's just astrology. So I've given examples of astrotheology in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry picking verses from the Bible to prove a point, which people in your comments are going to say. So let's take a much longer passage and see if we can decode it as well. So this gets to the book of Job. Are you familiar with the book of Job?
No, not 100%. Like, I don't know what
But do you
off the
know
top of
who
my
Job
head.
was?
Can you just go through it a little bit?
Yeah, Job was.
Yeah, just
So Job was a righteous.
listeners.
Job was a righteous guy. He had land, he had money, he had a wife, he had family, he had kids, he had animals, he had land, he had everything, and he was God's most loyal servant. Satan comes up to God and says, "Listen, the only reason he's loyal to you is because he has everything in the world. If you take stuff away from him, he's not going to be faithful anymore." So what does God do? He says, "I'll actually take that bet. I'll give you permission to do whatever you want to him, Satan, but you cannot take his life." That is the one caveat. Little by little, he starts getting sores. His family starts dying. His animals run away. He loses his house. He curses himself. Woe is me. He never curses God. What he does is ask God he talks to God. He screams out to him for him to answer. In the Bible, in Job, God answers him. What I'm going to read you is what God says. The first line is what he says. The second line is the astrology behind it, okay? Job 38:32. Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth is the zodiac. It literally means the zodiac. That's what Mazzaroth means, okay? So the first thing he says is, do you know your zodiac? Mazzaroth over time becomes the Mazzalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov. You can only imagine how old Mazel Tov is. What does Mazel Tov mean? It means good fortune from the stars. So what's the Lord's challenge to Job? He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Well, those are obvious celestial metaphors that you can see that, right? Then he says, can you bring forth the constellations in their season, or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above. The bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Who can tip over the water jars of heavens? Remember the picture of Aquarius, literally pouring the water pitcher out of heaven? That's Aquarius. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? That's Leo the lion. Who provides food for the raven? The constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mariga, meaning deer, is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille, or Al Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? So it's the horse. So we know that's Sagittarius, but let's prove it. He laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver, well, what is the quiver? That's what holds the arrows. Sagittarius with the arrows, the bow and the arrow, along with the side with the flashing spear and lance. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? Aquila is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Anybody knows that anything about the New Testament? Anybody knows anything about the Bible knows that at the time there were competing fish gods during the age of Pisces. You had Mithraism, you had Dagonism. In fact, the Pope's mitre, his hat, when you take it off and turn it to the side, it's made to look like a fish head because it goes back to Dagon worship. Okay, Pisces, the fish. These were ancient fish gods. Leviathan was an ancient fish god, so hence Pisces. So you see how God just challenges him. Do you know your stars? That's basically it. If you know how to read this, otherwise you just think he's asking him where all his animals are, but that's not the case.
It's so interesting. It really is.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So, and you're not unfamiliar to a lot of this stuff. You just haven't seen my stuff yet.
Yeah, like I've looked a bunch of different things, but I'm not like a specialist in anything. I just find a bunch of different stuff interesting. As far as like religion goes, I was raised like Catholic, but then I kind of just said fuck all that, and I didn't pay attention to any of that. But then I've kind of had an interest in it now in the past few years, and started reading more into this stuff and how all this stuff is connected, and all the different religions are kind of talking about kind of the same shit. So it's all very fascinating to me, especially this, like with the stars and everything. So
Thanks, man.
Awesome work, man.
Thanks, man. So Psalm 104. He sends forth springs in their valleys. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. He causes the grass to grow for the cattle, and wine which makes man's heart glad, so that he may make his face glisten with oil. The high mountains are for the wild goats. He made the moon for the seasons. The sun knows the place of its setting. The young lions were after their prey. The springs are Aquarius. The wild donkeys are Acellus borealis, which are in Cancer. The cattle is Taurus, the bull. The wine is Libra. The oil is Libra. The wild goats are Capricorn. The moon for the season and the sun knows the place of its setting is openly talking about the sun and the moon, okay, which were known as which were two of the planets back then. The lions were after their prey, or Leo. Let's do one more. Psalm 147. He gives to the beast its food and to the young ravens which cry. He does not delight in the strength of the horse. He does not take pleasure in the legs of a man. He makes peace in your borders. He satisfies you with the finest of the wheat. He gives snow like wool. Ravens are the constellation Corvus. The horse is Sagittarius. The man is Aquarius. The wheat is Virgo, and the wool from sheep or Aries. Okay? Answer to the questions at the beginning. How Jesus was able to heal the blind. In the Bible, in the story, if you believe it literally, the blind man came up to Jesus. Jesus licked his fingers and touched his eyes, and suddenly he could see. However, the sun does the same thing right now. See, it's dark out, so we can't see. But when the sun comes up and literally touches your eyes in the morning, you're given the gift of sight. You know? Okay? How he walked on water. You ever see a sunset on a lake before?
That's it, huh?
Yep. That's how the sun walks on water. Okay? And as far as Christos goes, his name is Jesus Christ. Christ goes back to Christos. Christos is oil, the anointed. It's oil. You ever see oil walk on water before? You ever pour oil on water before? Doesn't it also walk on water? It's a double entendre. Okay? How he turned water into wine. This is a process. Okay? The reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a mother, a woman, has to do with one thing. And it has to do with the sacred fluid, God's reign. Okay, in Hebrew, it's called shemen. We get the word semen from it. It's a sacred fluid. So what happens literally is God's sacred fluid comes down onto Mother Earth and impregnates her. And from her belly, grass grows, trees grow, vegetation and food grows. That's why she's a woman. That's why he's a man. So what happens? Well, in Taurus, the bull, right? You see the bull, you plant, right? You plant in Taurus. That's April showers bring May flowers. That's what it is. It rains and it rains and it rains. And then it continues to rain, and then the grapes grow. And then by the time you get to Libra, you pick them and crush them into wine. That's how you turn water into wine. It's a process. Why he had 12 disciples? We went over that. Why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas? We went over that. Why he was dead for 3 days? We went over that. Why is his birthday on December 25th? We went over that. Okay? The science that I'm teaching you right now only works for people in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's a reason for that. The Egyptians, Jews, Christians, and Muslims are all based out of the Northern Hemisphere. For example, June 21st is the summer solstice. It's actually the winter solstice in Australia and New Zealand. So when I told you put the plow on the bull to plant, you don't actually do that in the South, in the Southern Hemisphere in Taurus. You do it in Scorpio. Okay, that's when you do it. You find the opposing sign. Okay, because if these ancient holy religions started in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, or South America, it would be a different story. But that's why, because they're all from the north. That's why they're teaching Northern science. So it doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages in the Bible that can be decoded this way. We're going to go through the entire book of Matthew to show how deep this runs. And I'm going to show you how deep this runs. And then after the book of Matthew, that's pretty much it for the first half of the presentation. We'll have to do it another day.
Okay, awesome.
So, look at the zodiac wheel on the left. And look at the red that I've put on it. I've given you a helper so that you can follow along. So Matthew 3:2, repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Okay, each gospel begins at one of the four major points of the zodiac and ends at one of them as well. The two solstices and the two equinoxes, when connected, form a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. So the closest of the 4 points is June 21st in Cancer. This is where the gospel starts. This is the firmament that we were just talking about between Cancer and Leo. It's the beginning of the kingdom. There's a saying in the Bible that says the firmament shows God's handiwork. The firmament are the dividing lines between signs. Now, the next passage, Matthew 3:4, John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locust and wild honey. So if we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of it. Now, I get things from Christians saying, well, da Vinci's Vitruvian Man didn't come out, so how did they do this? You could use a stick figure. It doesn't matter. I'm just using the Vitruvian Man, okay? Cancer being the head is why he eats the wild honey. In Cancer, there's a star cluster called the beehive cluster. Bees produce honey. The head and the mouth are in Cancer, so he's eating the honey. Leviticus 11, what's clean and unclean to eat. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper, right? So when you see articles like this, Brandon, when the elites are trying to get you to eat grasshoppers, no, it's from the Bible. It's biblical. They're trying to fulfill that, okay? That's what they're trying to do. Now, a little lower on the body is the clothes made out of camel hair. In Gemini, there's a constellation called Camelopardalis, okay, which is in Gemini. So that's where the camel hair comes from. Okay, so now you have the head and the upper body so far. So we were just in Cancer. We go to the connecting sign, Gemini. Now we're going to the connecting sign, Taurus. Remember the patterns. You're always seeing patterns. Moving a little lower on the body, you'll get the midsection, which is where he would wear a belt. Taurus represents the bull, and the female is the cow, which is where you would get the leather. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits between Taurus and Gemini. So next would be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo to a water sign to signify the baptism? You would go across the zodiac. Cross signs, as they are known, are the signs' opposite location. For example, Aries and Libra are cross signs. This is very important. The signs' three most important signs are its two neighboring signs and its cross sign, because that's how you make the patterns. Here we see how it makes a leap from one firmament to the other. The man with the water pitcher is Aquarius. Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with the water. Okay? It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th and rises a degree a day, then that must mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decrease a degree a day. This is why in John 3:30, John says, he must increase, but I must decrease. It's also why St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus. Now, the next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we're going back to the Cancer-Leo firmament of July 24th. Well, he's tempted by the devil for 40 days. So count 40 days. That's all you have to do. July 24th takes you to September 2nd. That's right in the middle of Virgo. The lady, the virgin with the wheat stalk, right? What's the next passage? Matthew 4:3. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is in Virgo. The next passage, Matthew 5:17 and 22, I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. This takes place in Libra. So we were just in Virgo for the bread. Now we're in Libra for the law statements. Okay? Matthew 7:15 and 16, beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, and can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? The sheep are the ram in Aries, and the grapes are in Libra. Once again, these are opposing signs. Moving along, Matthew 13. Later that same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. The story now moves from Libra to the barrier between Aquarius and Pisces. I want this to make sense to you. When you're at a firmament, okay, if I'm in Cancer, I could talk about a crab. I could talk about a beetle. I could have a passage about honey. But if I'm in Leo, I can only really talk about lions. But if I'm at the firmament between the two, where the energies blend, I could talk about either. So when they say he sat beside the lake, he's in between the two water signs. He's at that firmament. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. So now its cross sign is the Leo Virgo firmament. As it's across from Virgo, the wheat stalk and the grains, the next parables are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast, all having to do with Virgo. Moving right along, the next parable is the fishing net parable. So you go back from Leo Virgo to Aquarius Pisces. You're touching Pisces with the fish, so you can use the fishing net parable. You see how all this starts to work?
Yeah, man, definitely.
Okay, good. Gemini is the sign of two men, technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends at the firmament of Gemini and Cancer. How do we know this? So you're at the firmament of Gemini and Cancer because you're talking about twins. So you're touching Gemini, so you're talking about twins and brothers, right? Follow that to its cross sign. Takes you to Sagittarius, Capricorn firmament. Do you know what day that is?
Is that the 25th again?
21st.
Oh.
And what was the 21st of December? That's the day of death.
Okay. Oh.
That's the day of death. That's the day the sun dies. Now, how do we know that that's what we're talking about? Because the next story is the death of John the Baptist. Remember, the death happens at the firmament between Sagittarius and Capricorn. The next is the death of John the Baptist. So let's take the sentence, which sounds like it could be in the Bible, but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half. You could read that as a literal translation. Or the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war, and the ruling planet of Libra is Venus, who's the goddess of love. There's your war and love. If you connect it, it literally splits the land or the zodiac in half. Okay? That's how this is done. That's how these passages are all done with astrology. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The bread and the fish are opposing signs in the zodiac. Pisces, the fish, and Virgo, the wheat stalk, the bread. Okay? This is why Jesus fed the masses with 2 fish. And as far as the 5 loaves of bread, if you start the year in Aries and you count 5 signs, it brings you to Virgo. Okay? This is the cross of God's sun. This is what it looks like. Okay? This is when you connect the solstices and the equinoxes. We were just in Virgo, and now next is Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? So what stories do we get now? The stories of the temple tax, the unforgiving debtor, divorce and marriage, all law-related, and the parable of the vineyard worker, wine-related. That's how this is all broken down. Next is Scorpio. So we were in Virgo. Now we were in Libra. Now we're in Scorpio because the next story is the betrayal. And then we go to Sagittarius because it's the death, and that's the death of Jesus. Astrology is a language. If you understand this language, the sky speaks to you. And it's so true. Okay? That's the first half of my presentation, man.
That's very fascinating stuff, man. I really love that. Like agriculture and different and like survival pretty much like at different times of the year and stuff. It's kind of like
it's a farmer's almanac.
Yeah.
You familiar with Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey?
Yeah, the power of myth and stuff. Yep.
The sun going through the 12 zodiac signs, anthropomorphized as a living human Jesus going through the hero's journey, mimicking the stars, as above, so below. And guess what? Remember at the beginning how I told you there were 7 sciences? I'm only talking about one. It's encoded this deeply with the other ones too. Yeah. There's more to know about the Bible than you can learn in a lifetime.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Like I said earlier, I kind of like got away from it and stuff, but I realized there's so much to it. So awesome. Right. So I love this part of it, like what you're bringing. So why encode it so deeply?
Well, because it was survival. It was the most important information.
So it would never be lost by language. It would always be in the sky.
It's been mapped out. Look, the way I put it, and I do this in my second half of my presentation, the sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, and the zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar. It's a perfect clock.
Yeah.
Perfect clock. In the middle of the Milky Way galaxy where we are, in the middle of nowhere, because we are in the middle of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in the middle of nowhere. There's a perfect calendar. Okay? They figured it out. And then they mapped the sacred information to keep it. What do you do with all your what do you do with all your important stuff? You put it in a safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do. That's what this is. That's what the Bible is. It's safe.
Yeah. And I love that what you said about, the earth being the female and the rain from God, from the male. And that's like to them was probably the most important thing at the time. Like we've lost that. We've lost, our connection to the earth, and a lot of people have, that's pretty powerful. It's pretty deep. Right. I like that thing. If it didn't rain and the crops didn't grow and all that, and nothing happened, right? So that's pretty deep. I like that.
We take for granted that we have phones, calendars, clocks, weathermen.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any of it.
Yeah.
They had to know when to plant. And what did they have? They didn't have watches.
Yeah.
They had to look at the sky and go, oh, the bull. Now I have to plant.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's Virgo, the wheat stalk. Now I have to reap. You know what they used to do? They used to have dream interpreters. That's what this whole story with Joseph is about. He's a dream interpreter for the Pharaoh.
Wow.
So that his land doesn't go into starvation. It's the same thing.
Mm.
They had to know when winter was coming. Like the big joke in Game of Thrones was winter is coming.
Yeah.
Well, that was a fucking problem.
That was legit. Yeah. Every year, right? That was legit. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. It's like puts everything together. Like the syncretism is like how
Yeah.
everything is connected. I love that. And it's just finding the right pieces and everything, putting them together. And it never ends, really. It seems like it's just never going to end. So that's what's awesome about it too. Is you can just keep going, just keep finding awesome
The
stuff.
Bible, there's more to learn about the Bible than you can learn in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as where I am, if anyone's listening, I'm on Twitter at Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Micah Dank. I have a YouTube channel, Micah Dank, where I have all my work. If you guys want to come and see what I'm all about, please subscribe to my YouTube. I'm trying to grow it. Come to YouTube, see if we can't blow your mind a little.
Yeah, definitely check out all his stuff. It's amazing. So, and you got, don't forget the books too. You got
the
books coming out.
The books too. I always forget to plug the books. The books go into about 40 different esoteric sciences, but I teach like George Orwell taught through story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How you learn everything. And I have 7 books. It's called Into the Rabbit Hole. It's on Amazon. If you reach out to me on social media and you want signed copies, I do that too. Believe it or not, I sell thousands of copies from my house.
Right on, man.
And yeah, no, we're going to take over the world with this information.
That's awesome. Like, yeah, I looked up like your books and stuff, and they seem really, really fascinating. I like that, like the fiction mixed with this stuff, you know. And
do a favor. Go to my first book, Beneath the Veil, and read some of the comments or read some of the reviews.
Okay. Yeah, man, this is all very fascinating stuff, and this is like why I kind of started the podcast, was just to try to just find as much information and
it's important to know
out there.
Too for religious people. When you first learn this stuff, you will go through the 5 stages of grief: denial, bargaining, acceptance, depression. You will go through them in order because you will realize you were lied to, and you weren't given the whole truth. So that's the first half. We could do the second half at another.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to.
Let me know what your listeners think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure they're gonna love this. So I really, appreciate you coming on here and everything and dropping that knowledge. It's awesome. So yeah, let's definitely link up again and do like a part 2 soon for sure. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know how everybody takes it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
All right, man. You take it easy.
Thank you.
Later. That was Micah Dank with a presentation on astrotheology, and I'm hoping to have a part 2, like I said earlier in the intro. What you guys can do, though, is definitely go check out Micah Dank on YouTube, and you can get the visual presentation of Intro to Astrotheology. We did this on Zoom call. I recorded it. I plan on eventually releasing the video. I just have to figure all of that out, and the editing process is different than audio. So once I get that all figured out and where I want to actually start a channel for this podcast, I will be posting that eventually, maybe after we do part 2, if that happens, which I am really hoping for. I will maybe start a YouTube channel or something and put out the video for these, which I hope to do. So you can definitely go check out his YouTube channel and see these presentations and all the visual stuff that he has to show in the, until I post the video. So definitely check that out. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know. I love to hear your feedback for this episode, and I would love for you to share this with somebody. Just pass it out there. Spread the word. The Brave New World Order podcast is out there, and I'm hoping to have more episodes like this. So email me with feedback, the Brave New World Order podcast at gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter. Hit me up. Send me a DM, whatever, at Brave NWO podcast. I love to hear your feedback. This episode was important to me. It was my first time having a guest on here, and I will get better. I will always constantly improve every day. So that's all we can do. The Brave New World Order podcast is going to get better and is going to be great. So with your help, definitely. So share this, email me, feedback, reviews, thumbs up if you like all this stuff. And if you really want to help out, you can click the link in the show notes below and help the Brave New World Order podcast with whatever amount you can. Every little bit helps. And I just want to thank all of you, each and every one of you, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Brave New World Order and listen to this presentation by Micah Dank. I thought it was amazing. I hope you did too. I will be back soon with another episode. In the meantime, stay positive, think for yourself, question everything, and I'll see you soon. Much love.